Live from our Maritimes News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Steve Murphy.
It might not be the storm of the century, but it is at least the storm of the decade for some parts of the Maritime provinces. A ferocious nor'easter dumping the most snow from a single storm in many years in many places, with powerful sustained winds making this a true blizzard. Good evening, everyone. The other feature that distinguishes this storm is its duration. Unlike the nor'easter that literally churned by in a matter of hours on Thursday night, this one is lumbering through, taking a second pass as it rotates very slowly up the coast, as Cindy Day said it would. We have extensive team coverage of the blizzard tonight, beginning with CTV's Kellen Sundall, who is live in Halifax for us tonight. And Kellen, this is not over yet.
Yes, Steve, this storm just won't quit. It blew in overnight, raged all day, and continues now. The high winds are making conditions dangerous, and people are being urged to stay inside. The elements pack a powerful punch, high winds causing storm surge, the waves making for an impressive sight. Blizzard warnings spread out across the Maritimes. Fierce whiteout conditions at times impossible to navigate.
It's a bitter go, I tell you. Especially if the wind is in the wrong direction.
Oh, they were right, and if it keeps going, they could hit the, 60 centimeters?
As people hunker down, cancellations pile up. Flights grounded at least until tomorrow morning. Nova Scotia Power has activated its Emergency Operations Centre. Thousands of homes and businesses are in the dark and could be for the next 24 hours, possibly longer.
As the crews get out to different areas, they will be assessing the damage once they have eyes on it, and they'll be providing new updated estimates.
And the winds are so strong today. They average 80 kilometers an hour across the Maritimes, but there are pockets like this one where the gusts are over 100.
This is definitely the biggest storm so far, probably in the last 2 years. Our operational plan started last night. Right now we have over 200 pieces of equipment out on the road.
Getting anywhere is a struggle. Halifax buses and ferries aren't running. Mail service also ground to a halt. Canada Post anticipating conditions too dangerous for letter carriers. But at maritime hospitals, there are special deliveries. Jeep clubs band together to get essential service staff to work.
For, the ICUs and the Emerge and ORs, they're needed no matter what the weather is.
The IWK has canceled all ambulatory clinics until noon tomorrow. ERs are still open, but elective surgeries canceled along with home care visits. Clifford Clayton braved the weather to make it in for dialysis.
Well, someday I will have to miss, probably, but right now my record's clean, right? So I just trying to keep it that way.
Once the snow stops, people will be assessing the damage. Even the Prime Minister today in Washington talking about the blizzard back home.
We are suffering under a significant winter storm that's hitting our Atlantic provinces particularly harsh.
The wind sent trees, power lines, and signs tumbling.
The sign blew down, about 16 feet high. The wind took it.
While most avoided the storm, some who do venture out underestimate the conditions.
Trying to see the storm, how high the tide was, and we got stuck.
Stranded without a shovel, people come to help. We managed to push him out, but the heavy lifting is far from over. Officials warning it could take days to clean up from this blizzard. And Steve, I have an update to share with you that's just come out from the city of Halifax. Now, ferry service will resume tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. The buses will stay off the road until 5 p.m. tomorrow. As a result of that, all municipal offices will be closed tomorrow as well. And those snow plows, well, they'll continue to work around the clock. And as for the storm, it's not moving out of our region until at least tomorrow morning. Steve.
All right, thank you, Kellen. CTV's Kellen Sundall for us tonight live in Halifax. This storm has virtually shut down central southern New Brunswick as well, including any highway travel from the United States border all the way to the Greater Moncton area. Team coverage continues now with CTV's Mike Cameron for us tonight in Uptown St. John. Mike.
Well, Uptown St. John looked like a ghost town for most of the day, especially this afternoon. Any business that did open this morning threw in the towel this afternoon because conditions were just getting worse and worse. Uptown institutions like the City Market chose not to open at all today, a decision that was made by most businesses in St. John. Few motorists ventured out onto the roads, and as conditions deteriorated, even walking became hazardous.
So you have to watch out, you have to keep your eye focused on where you're walking and everything.
This blizzard has been relentless.
heaviest I've seen it fall in a while, for sure.
Municipal crews struggled to keep up with the snow that just kept coming.
These conditions are about as challenging as it gets with the blowing snow and the amount of accumulation we've had so far.
Plow drivers joined a chorus that was asking motorists to stay off the road.
Really just stay in till it passes over, we get these roads cleaned up.
Nothing is moving on Highway 1, the main route through southern New Brunswick, after police issued a warning about travel on the entire length from St. Stephen to Petitcodiac.
Storm like this, you'd naturally expect whiteout conditions on a highway, but the wind gusts today, you're getting whiteout conditions right in uptown St. John.
Crews in Moncton are also fighting high winds, blowing snow, and reduced visibility. And as the blizzard roared through Fredericton, a lot of residents could be seen with jerry cans, replenishing the fuel for snowblowers and generators. This was a snow day to remember.
Work for a living. We got the day off work. Can't work outside on a day like this.
Though outside work is hard to avoid.
We had a good January. It was pretty nice. We had some warm days too, so I guess we're just paying the price for it now.
Hopefully this is the last one for the year.
After this storm, it's a hope shared by Maritimers everywhere. The city of St. John has declared an overnight parking ban in the north, west, and east sides of the city. Motorists have to get their vehicles off the road if they can move them at all. Steve?
Fair point. Thank you, Mike. CTV's Mike Cameron at St. John City Hall. It is not only dangerous to be on the roads, it's also dangerous at the coastlines. The waves are unusually high, surging along the waterfronts where many people walk and some people work. CTV's Amanda Debison live now on the Halifax waterfront. It's very windy there tonight, Amanda.
It is very windy, Steve. It's actually being advised that people stay away from the coastline because it's so windy and because the water levels are so high. And in many areas along the coastline, the waves are actually crashing above where people walk and where people work. There are people even here walking along the Halifax waterfront trying to get a close glimpse of the storm surge, but they're being advised to stay away. And we do want to show you some dramatic photos from right across the region that we received today. One of them being in Lawrencetown. Waves have been high all day, and the high winds and high water levels, they aren't helping. Early this morning, crews along the Halifax waterfront here were also trying their best to plow the snow into the water, only to be fighting flooding along the way. Now at Lawrencetown Beach, waves were crashing onto the roadway. Waters were very choppy there, as they have been throughout the region. Now there has also been some coastal flooding as well. We want to show you a video of Gunning Wharf in Shelburne, Nova Scotia. That shows the effects a storm surge can have. Water has completely overtaken the road. Now it's not clear if there's any damage. We'll have to wait till this storm is over to see what kind of damage these storm surges are having on coastlines right across the region. Now, the tides were very impressive during high tide this morning. That was at 10:04 a.m. It will be high tide again tonight at 10 p.m. Again, like the video we're showing you, it's advised that you stay inside. We will have a camera to show you just how impressive those waves will be tonight at 10 p.m. Steve at CTV News at 11:30.
All right, Amanda, thanks very much. CTV's Amanda Debison on the Halifax waterfront. Blizzard conditions are also raging across Prince Edward Island. The visibility is bad and getting worse now that the sun's gone down. Sometimes, a picture really is worth more than 1,000 words. Look at this. It's not what you're seeing in this picture, it is what you're not seeing in Cornwall. The view from the back deck doesn't really look that bad until you realize there is an entire subdivision on the other side of those houses that are no longer visible at all because of the snow. And now to the Weather Center. Meteorologist Cindy Day, busiest day of the year for you for sure, tracking the storm and the storm totals to this point. The storm's not over and we've already had a lot of snow.
That's right, and this storm system makes it almost impossible to measure snowfall totals, Steve. And I think we had a chat off the air earlier today where one side of the house could have snow drifts up to your armpits, and the other side of the house there's really nothing on the car, and that's a factor of the very, very strong winds. Let's have a look at the system, and I'll show you why the winds are so strong. Here's I hesitate to say what's left of the system, because there's a lot left in this system. It is spiraling. It's not traveling from west to east. We need it to start doing that in order to get out of the bands of snow. It it is slowly shifting off to the east, and precipitation has wrapped up over the extreme southwest corner of Nova Scotia. Now, we'll take you through a timeline to show you what you can expect over the next 24 hours. So we're still very well involved, and as was mentioned earlier, Cape Breton and PEI just started to see precipitation after the noon hour today and mid-afternoon at Cape Breton. So we'll move it forward to about midnight tonight. Not a great deal of precipitation left in New Brunswick, perhaps the Moncton area, and then the eastern half of mainland Nova Scotia, including Cape Breton and PEI. It's still snowing quite enthusiastically, as you like to say. The winds wrapping around behind the system from the northeast. They'll flip to the north a little later on. They'll diminish by about noon tomorrow, but we can expect gusts to 80 kilometers per hour through the evening and overnight. Noontime tomorrow, still some flurries across Cape Breton and over portions of mainland Nova Scotia where those cold north winds come ashore. Storm surge warnings are still in place. Here's a look at your high tide times tonight. 9:46 Sydney to the eastern shore regions of Cape Breton, 10:04 p.m. in Halifax, and 12:42 a.m. in the Yarmouth area. Pounding surf. Stay away, as Amanda said, from the coastlines. Here's a look at the marine weather statement. Gale and high water level warnings are in place. 7 to 10 meter waves just off the Atlantic coast of Nova Scotia, all along the coastal areas. Northeast winds at 60 knots. I've been building this map for quite a few years. I can't recall seeing waves quite that high. A few nor'easter numbers for you. The winds gusted to 111 kilometers per hour just an hour or so ago in Greenwood, sustained winds of 80. The snow didn't start till midday in PEI and Cape Breton, but it ended at about 2 o'clock this afternoon over La Baie Sainte-Marie. Waves range from 7 to 10 meters just offshore with pounding surf. It's quite a system, and to top it all off, in the valley today at about 10:30 this morning, there was thunder snow. Quite a few reports of thunder and lightning flashes with the heavy snow event. So it's quite a storm. It's a textbook nor'easter, Steve.
We used to measure wave height in feet. 10 meters would be more than a 30-foot sea.
That's incredible, isn't it?
That is incredible. All right. Thank you, Cindy. And Cindy's back a bit later in the half hour with the very latest forecast. As Cindy's charts have clearly shown you, Cape Breton is only now getting into the worst of the weather from the blizzard. Let's go now live to CTV's Ryan McDonald, who's with us outside in Sydney tonight. Ryan, it is certainly a blizzard there now.
Is it ever? Yeah, the timing was nice. The wind really kind of picked up just as soon as you threw to me. I don't know if it's my imagination or what, Steve, but I think it's actually nastier out here now than it was when we checked here in Sydney about a half hour ago. And that downward spiral, if you will, expected to continue overnight and into tomorrow morning. As we heard Cindy and some other reporters mention earlier, the wind is really causing nearly as much trouble as the snow itself. High gusts really whipping it around, causing poor visibility, not only on the highways, but in town as well, which is somewhat rare. Loss of power has been one of the biggest problems, really province-wide in this storm. Now, that big outage in Myra, Steve, that I mentioned a half hour ago, that was affecting more than 2,000 customers, that is no longer showing up on Nova Scotia Power's live outage map, but NSP is warning that they do expect more power outages to come. Some of those may come overnight, so hopefully everybody is well prepared. Again, visibility poor. Most of us are hunkered down now, and police saying to remain hunkered down, and that storm is hunkered down here in Cape Breton for the next number of hours, Steve.
We know that days like today are inconvenient, and they can be dangerous. They can be costly for many of us, too. But for people who have nowhere to go, this kind of weather can be downright lethal. Shelters and warming centers are an absolute necessity during a blizzard. CTV's Bruce Frisco is live from the Salvation Army shelter in Halifax tonight with more on that. Bruce?
Right you are, Steve. Whether clients are considered transient or transitional, as you say, facilities like this are certainly essential for people who may have nowhere else to go. Now, many of these places are run by volunteers, and it's absolutely extraordinary the lengths they go to keep the doors open in weather like this. On a day fit for neither man or beast, just off the howling, bitterly cold winds of Barrington Street, an oasis of sorts in the basement of St. Matthew's United. It's not gourmet, but the meal is hot and filling and vital for folks who may have nowhere else to go. The Halifax Warming Centre is a collaborative effort between a number of groups and agencies.
Just stuff to keep people warm and fed and to just help them survive today, really.
Ken Meldrum is a regular, helps out with chores when he can. The former dairy farmer says everyone comes in with the same idea.
Get out of the cold. The storm is brutal. It's painful.
I can't see a thing.
5 minutes away, Ken Porter anxiously waits for the lunch crowd at Seoul's Harbor Rescue Mission. As usual, there's enough food for 150 people, but only 22 show up today. What's not usual is Ken sleeping at the shelter to make sure the doors open on time.
I'm glad to park here and camp out overnight in a sleeping bag and just to make sure people don't go hungry.
And others go above and beyond as well. A group of off-road enthusiasts volunteer to drive shelter workers to and from home.
We want to make sure that they get there the safest way possible and nothing happens to them on the way.
A challenging commitment on a day like this, but an essential one with so many seeking shelter from the storm. Bruce Frisco, CTV News, Halifax.
This blizzard is having a serious effect on air travel here in Atlantic Canada. Every airport in the region is dealing with flight cancellations right into tomorrow morning. CTV's Jonathan McGuinness has more tonight from Greater Moncton Romeo LeBlanc International Airport. Jonathan.
Well, Steve, the Greater Moncton Romeo LeBlanc International Airport, like every other airport in the region, is essentially a ghost town. Some have even closed for the day. The road leading to the Moncton Airport offers a sobering sight for air travelers. High winds and whiteout conditions mean arrivals and departures are cancelled. The boards inside confirm it.
They said tomorrow they give us another appointment. So today again, when I came back, I saw that everything is closed.
Maintenance staff are storm stayed too. Roger Savoie might be looking at a lot of overtime should his shift be extended.
Well, supposedly 7.5, but I could be here for 24 hours.
Why is that?
Well, because if the people that are supposed to come in and relieve me, they don't come in, then we got to stay.
Hagar Rabi and his wife are trying to fly back to Morocco. They arrived at the airport Sunday, but the blizzard has them grounded.
It's wonderful, wonderful. I like this water.
Other airports around the region are also being impacted by this blizzard. All flights in and out of Halifax, Sydney and St. John are grounded for the day. Fredericton International Airport is even closed. Travelers in Cape Breton are apparently heeding the warnings and staying home. The next flight in or out of Halifax is an arrival from Florida at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. As for the Arabis, they'll spend another night at a hotel. An extra night in a city they hope to one day call home.
I'm happy because this is my first time I see the snow. This is wonderful. At the same time, I saw the life, how is it in Canada.
But Arabi adds his next visit will be in the summer. Well, Steve, Fredericton International Airport is planning to reopen tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. And if you have flights booked out of any airport in the region, odds are that flight is not going to be leaving, so check ahead just to make sure. If you don't have to be on the roads, don't. Steve?
Thank you, John. CTV's Jonathan McGuinness for us tonight from Romeo LeBlanc International in Dieppe. You know, for a few hours earlier today, some people in eastern mainland Nova Scotia and Cape Breton enjoyed a reprieve from these harsh winter conditions. The storm hit there late this morning and through the afternoon on the Cape. That allowed for some last-minute shopping. CTV's Dan McIntosh has more.
They expected the worst, but when residents of New Glasgow woke this morning to find little sign of the winter storm, the last-minute shopping began. Any store or supermarket that was open was busy.
This here's stockpile for the 27 hours of snow, I guess, is coming. Restock.
I'm just getting some stuff for the snow. Emergency stuff, candles, some snacks, just in case.
Filling the backseat of the car with groceries means ballast for the car and fresh supplies for home.
Well, I was at work and we're leaving work early, so I'm just picking up a few last-minute things, and I think I'll do some baking when I go home.
The alert shoppers, mostly male it seems, realized that tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and they changed their plans accordingly.
Usually wait till the last moment to get it.
And?
Well, the snowstorm's going to shut this place down early, I figure, so I might as well get it now.
I got storm chips home, and no storm rum, though.
What's this?
This is for the wife.
We have an all-wheel drive. We can probably get out, but maybe I'd get out and there'd be no stores open.
As the storm moved in, we found someone making sure they could see clearly for the long drive home.
Everybody's just getting last-minute supplies before they go home.
Including,
wait out the storm.
Yeah, including windshield wash.
including windshield washer. Oh, you always need your windshield washer closed so you can see.
Of course, the reprieve here in New Glasgow was short-lived. The storm moved in around noon hour, and even last-minute shoppers now are hunkering down for the evening. Dan McIntosh, CTV News, New Glasgow, Nova Scotia.